You teach economics, and right now, I think almost every other day, the discussion or the worry is: are we on the cusp of, or on the verge of recession, growth slowing, demand slowing, et cetera? Right? When you got this heat wave blanketing the country, it's a no-brainer to think that look, when a situation like this happens, the only thing workers or people want to do is get into the shade, grab an iced tea, and maybe take a nap.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me on. There is a body of evidence now suggesting that when states have an unusually hot summer, that growth is slower that year. So that is something that we've seen in the data. You also see that workers are less productive, and not just in outdoor industries, but also in indoor industries like finance that you wouldn't think would be as exposed. So it does seem to be true that when areas are unusually hot, that the economy does take a hit.
Yeah, so workers are less inclined to do what they're supposed to do, which is work, and that's totally understandable. But it's not just that, right? It has inflationary effects because, I mean, if you are going to keep cool, your house or your office or even your factory, I mean, your utilities bill is going to go up.
In the summer, right? In the winter, more heat can be good. It can lower the bills, but in the summer, it is true the energy use goes up. And in most cases, with actual functioning energy markets, you're going to see prices go up as use goes up. And that is something that you do see. Oil is a little bit harder of a call, but for sure in electricity, because that powers air conditioning. And people, at least in the US, less so in the UK, but in the US, air conditioning gets cranked up when it gets hot out. And you do see that in the data, and you do see it in energy markets show up pretty clearly.
Indeed. So, Derek, I mean, part of this whole inflation phenomenon is it's affecting food as well. I mean, there's a shortage or a food crisis ongoing as we speak. This heat certainly doesn't help.
There's been a lot of work connecting agriculture to heat because obviously crops are grown outdoors. Outdoors are exposed to outdoor weather. There are things you can do to help. Irrigation does help. You deal with the heat. But on the whole, moderate heat is good for crops. But if it gets too hot, then that's going to start damaging the crops as well. Especially if you don't know it's coming beforehand. Like you might change what you would have planted if you expected that heat. And you might change how you irrigate. But if you don't have a huge lead time, it's really hard to do much. The crops are already in the ground, and it can be pretty costly at that point.
All right. So listen, I don't know if you have the answer to this, but I'm asking because I certainly don't. And that is, this time of year, we're just getting into the summer here. I mean, what is usually being planted right now, which could be at risk because of these at these high temperatures? And I'm asking because I wonder whether staple crops, wheat, et cetera, is this the time of year?
I think it really depends on where in the world you're looking. And some crops are more vulnerable to the weather when they're planted. Others are more vulnerable to weather at the times that they're growing. So I know in a lot of cases, corn and wheat are growing right now, but in some parts of the world, it could be different crops that are more vulnerable. So I don't have the details to give you a full rundown on that.